Hello, lovelies. Happy New Year. It's Wednesday, July the 26th, 2023, and I'm recording this in the Leo meridian. So it's 11:41 a.m. And where to begin? It's so big. Let's begin with the calendar. Now we're here. So this year is White Overtone Wizard. So it's the 5th year of the 13-year cycle of White Wizard that began back here in 2019. So where were you back then and what was happening for you? We've been looking at some old videos of where I was and what was happening for me. And just before the cycle in 2018, when I first came to California, and never in my wildest dreams had I thought that I was going to go to California. And now I'm in Florida, and I did have a dream to come here way, way back 26 years ago, which has now come to fruition. And so it's just really looking at our lives now. What do we love? What is our heart's desire? What have we wanted to create all of this time? And how is that working out for us? But the priority now is, as I always say, it's about I. Who am I? And how am I feeling about myself? And our ego creates all these escapisms and distractions for not focusing on ourselves. And especially in our culture, in our society, especially as women, we are taught to focus on everyone else first. And that is a ruinous pattern. So now is the time to really focus on how we are feeling, how we are crafting our new empowerment. White Wizard is the 14th Mayan sign. It's the start of what I call the solar seals. And again, all of this is offered from my perspective of working with the Mayan calendar on a daily basis since 2011. That's what I believe it's about. It's about your personal relationship with this. And this is getting us back into the old ways before we learned all these new ways of being. When I say new, thousands of years. But before then, we had a different way of working with the universe and our intuition, and not having all of these old patterns either in our ancestry, because we had different places that we came from in the universe, and also that we didn't have all the trauma stories that we've got now either. So again, past, present and future, with this calendar you can make a quantum leap, and you have to be willing to do what it takes, which is basically looking at what you don't love about yourself, what you don't love about your life, where that comes from. And it is about self-belief. It is about, who am I? Who do I believe I am? What do I believe I'm here to do in this lifetime? And then really working on ourselves to shift any old limiting beliefs around how we feel. The how we feel bit is the most important bit, because that's the heart, that's the spirit, and that's the time that we're in, is coming into this heart space to evolve. So the solar seals, we have the first 12 Mayan signs, which take us through a human being process. And then we have 13 different variations of those. And this runs up and down, up and down, up and down in a 13-day process over and over again with slightly different energies, just to simplify it. It is very complex because the universe is complex and we are complex. And yet at the same time, paradoxically, we can make it simple. And this is, again, what this is designed to do. We come into it wherever we come into it, when it's our time to come in. And if you choose, you can buy a calendar, you can make a calendar. I made this one. If you want this one, it's a free resource on my website, flowwithjo.com, and I'll put a link underneath. There's a whole resource section on there. I made it because I wanted to go through the process of making it, and that took me on a big journey. All calendars tend to have their own different focus because each one of us has our own different focus as to where we are on our path, where we are on our cycle, what our Mayan sign is. So the more that you start to learn about that, the more that you will expand that energy and start to do things differently. Because a lot of this is about unlearning what we've been taught, what we've been programmed, and then coming into a different space because of that. And this requires healing. This requires energy work on this space and also in different places in your body so that you can release that old storyline that's still keeping you stuck in it, because you're willing to listen to your inner child, you're willing to heal it, and you're willing to learn new ways of being that are healthy and wise. So it's a many-faceted process, but it can start very simply, just one day at a time, like most processes. So by the time we've done the first 12, which is to yellow human, that's the human being process, and then we can become the Skywalker, which is step 13. And so we start to shift. We come off the number 12 process, which is the Gregorian calendar, which is a framework that keeps us stuck on the 12-step process. And the 12-step process is a codependency process, whichever way you look at it. It just is what it is. The number 13 is the goddess process, the goddess returning, the feminine part of ourselves, of men and women, that has been cast out and forbidden for thousands of years because we had to go through this process. And now we're coming back, we're reclaiming it back, we're remembering that aspect of ourselves. And so then we go on to, how do we do that? Okay, so these 7 solar seals are like the mastery steps. But again, there's no hierarchy. It doesn't matter whether you're a white wizard or you're a yellow human. It doesn't matter what you are. You've chosen to be what you are and come into that family line in order to heal it. And in order to heal it, we have to go through some very challenging stuff right now, because all our family lines have been through challenging stuff. And so in order to become an expert in the field, we're here to learn about this on a deep level with embodiment, and then start to heal and clear it. So the 7 solar steps, that's the 13-year cycle that we're in of White Wizard. White Wizard is a planetary energy. So again, we've got 20 mind signs, and each tribe has 4 members in it. So there's 5 tribes. So the planetary energy, which changes at the same time as the new year, on the 26th of July every year, that is red moon, which is awakening to our authenticity and being the beacon of light. And the planet is Mercury. So we've got Mercury in Leo right now, which is really coming into the language and higher awareness of unconditional love, because we're in the white dog wave spell as well, which I'll come back to in a moment. We then have White Wizard, which is the moon goddess. It's a bit of a misnomer, the White Wizard. It's the moon goddess Ixchel. And this is about our empowerment. So remember, we start off with a red, with awakening, and then we move on to refining. And so we're in a refining 13-year cycle. The red moon cycle began in 2006 and ended in 2018. So again, think back to what you were doing then. What were you awakening to that you are now refining? And the planet of White Wizard is the asteroid belt. So where the asteroids are in your chart is key. They're new consciousness coming in. And White Wizard is all about letting go of anything that isn't authentic, anything that has disempowered us, anything that has been abusive, has been shadow behavior. And so that we can heal it and really come into our power now, our sovereignty, our Leo lioness being the love we came to share from a place of innocence and not naivety, but innocence where we let go of any labels or projections about who we are rather than who we really are, which again is very difficult because people have their projections. That's how the universe works. That is red moon. That's a shadow of red moon, these projections. So all of this takes a lot of work and discipline. Sorry, but that's how it is. And it means we have to go through stages, as in the 12-step process, where we identify how we are using codependency in whatever way we're doing that to be a child and be dependent on something else, someone else, in order to get our emotional needs met, in order to get our daily needs met. This is a huge evolutionary process. The next planetary energy is Blue Storm, and so always a transformation of the first two. And Blue Storm is Pluto. It's our shadow story that has to go, all our emotional irregulation, where we become people pleasers. We try to pacify people who are mentally ill, for example, who are bullies, who are aggressive, or maybe we are bullies, maybe we are aggressive. And it's really coming to terms with that shadow behaviour in whatever way we have indulged in that. Now is the time to take responsibility for that and start to heal it. And finally, we have Yellow Seed, which is the flowering. And the more that we do all these other processes, the more that we can really flower and be our true selves and release the star seed that we are here to share in this lifetime. And the planet for that is Jupiter. And Jupiter is the mastery planet, the expansion planet. And so again, where that is in your chart, where it is in the universal chart, how to work with that consciously gives a depth of understanding. And on another level, you don't have to have that depth. You're working with that energy anyway, in whichever way you need to work with it. So just to say, today's energy for the moon, and the moon is so important in all of this, the lunar, the step 2 in every 13-day process. The moon in our chart, it's our emotional story, It's where we are looking to work with the red moon. And we've gone into red moon day 1 today. So we've got 28 days of seeing what we are magnetically attracting around our moon story, because we're going to be working with that for the next 13 moons, so for the next 9 months. As a Leo, my birthday's coming up. I am a magnetic moon, and this is why I'm doing this work as well, because of my personal code. Let me just bring it up. So we've got the moon in Scorpio waxing to a full moon in Aquarius at 9 degrees. And so whenever the moon's in Scorpio, we're looking at our wounding story. And I did the code at 11:11 this morning, just to give an example. So I'm on Eastern time, and I'm just going to read the degree. So this is from aquaorfire.net, and it's a channeled work. I love these storylines. So wherever you've got degrees in your chart, you can look up these little stories that give you a much deeper insight about what that actually means rather than a number. So again, 11, the power of 11 in the Mayan calendar is dissonance. It's about letting go. Cognitive dissonance. Gnarled, twisted trees against an overcast sky. Seeing the worst, feeling the worst, knowing the worst. In tune with darkness, difficulty, and melodrama, you are sharply drawn to points of view and ways of life that bear the stamp of irony, skepticism, and doubt. There can be a corrosive immersion in cycles of falling for the worst. However, you are closely watched by guiding spirits and allowed to become only so far shadowed. And then a massive corrective action asserts itself, reversing many terrifying patterns. Playing with fire, checking out the dark side of the tracks, but inwardly you seek regeneration and even salvation in the most unlikely places, which in the ultimate reckoning may be the most likely places. That's so potent. Now I'm going to add into that where the sun is today. So we've got the sun is at 3 degrees of Leo. And so that energy is about co-creation, how we co-create with others. And how we co-create with others, again, comes back to how we co-create with ourselves. We have Mercury at 26 degrees of Leo. And again, for me as a Leo, I have my sun is at 25 and my Mercury is at 20. So these are really aspecting for me right now. This whole Venus retrograde, which I'm going to come to in a moment, is huge right now, huge. And we can feel it. I guess you're really feeling it. So Venus today, retrograde, it's gone retrograde for 40 days and 40 nights, which is biblical, as people are saying. It's a process, isn't it? And so again, the Christ consciousness process is something that we can all do, like any enlightenment process, if we follow the guidance and the metaphor and find the tools. So Venus at 28, again, a very powerful story, and I'm going to read you that. It's going to go back to 12 degrees, which again is interesting, isn't it? Because 12 degrees is the 12th step, and it's the crystal. Trying to get crystal clear. Leo at 28, men doing gymnastics, physical, material existence in a sturdy body in time and space is the greatest agony and the greatest ecstasy that could ever be. It is agony in that you are so weighed down by the gravity of things, sorely troubled, heavy impacted, just about immobilized. It is ecstasy in that you can do so much with it. And when you mobilize yourself to take hold of the body and wield it as an instrument and a vessel, the physical turns into a masterpiece, a wonder, a delight unsurpassed. You experience the heights and depths of ambivalence towards incarnation and embodiment, feeling both repelled and attracted by the core drama of life in this earth. When you feel good, everything glows with promise. When your life force ebbs and becomes stagnant, the world is saturated with abysmal dread. Sorry. Learn to harness embodied selfhood into something more constant and satisfying, even with repeated bouts of coming up against resistance and habit dying hard. Rigidity versus fluency. You have a creative dilemma with so much growth outlasting your own inner enemies and becoming earthworthy in the physical, triumphantly and with lasting imprint. Okay, so that's so powerful. So that's where we are now. And also where we are now, we've got Mars is at 9 degrees of Virgo. So again, a great place of going to the next level and seeing our cycles, seeing our patterns. And this is where Virgo is so helpful. The devil is in the details. The more that you know about that, as long as you don't get stuck in that, the more helpful it is, because we have to do our due diligence and become very aware of these details now and these codes. Jupiter is at 13 degrees of Taurus, so that's the goddess shift number. Saturn is at 6 degrees of Pisces. Again, retrograde, going over old ground, around where we need to come into balance with boundaries, with Christ consciousness, with addictions. Very important, because you cannot live in both worlds. You have to go through the process of being healthy and connected, and you cannot do that when you are intoxicated. As we all know, there is no lucidity in intoxication. It is what it is. Chiron at 19 degrees of Aries retrograde. That's going to be there for a long time. I think December we're going to be there. So again, we're going over old ground. Who am I? How do I decide who I am? How am I changing that now? Because we've got the North Node has gone into Aries on the first day of this cycle. I think, hang on, let me come back to that. Chiron definitely, North Node, sorry, went earlier than this cycle, but I'll come back to that in a moment. There's so many things happening that I can't hold it all in my head. So yes, going over old ground, going backwards, reassessing, that's what retrograde is, not forward thinking, reflecting, going within. That's what this time is about. Uranus at 22 degrees Taurus. So what's coming to light about the sacred feminine? That's at 22 degrees. Neptune at 27 degrees of Pisces, retrograde as well. So our delusions, our illusions, where are we being truthful, having a reality check and not off away with the fairies, pretending stuff isn't happening, as a coping mechanism. Pluto, 29 degrees of Capricorn retrograde. And so this is the anoretic degree. This is a time when we can really focus on what needs to die around this energy. And so just want to say the cards. These are the cards that I've chosen for this time, this whole year. Realm shift. Such a powerful card. And so we have to be prepared to do this work now, to go into this shift. So again, this energy is about the human being, the five-pointed star, our embodiment, who we are as a human being. Always reminds me of Patrick the Starfish. Actually did a blog about that once. So remember, we see ourselves wherever we go, we take ourselves. Our holograph reflects where we are in terms of our learning in this giant mystery school that we are in now. It's time for us to become very aware of that. So I'm going to do these in order, and I picked 5 cards because we're in a 5th year, we're in a mastery year, Overtone. We're mastering everything that came before that began in 2019. So first of all, we have got truce with our thought process, and I'll put links for these. Then I drew the 4 of discs, power, and that's an amazing mandala. And so where are we in our power? Where are we not in our power? And on the micro of our individual bubble, that is the key, because each one of us is doing this work in order to create the macro shift. The macro shift will not shift until enough people are doing this inner work. I cannot stress that highly enough. You don't do it with your head, you do it with your heart. You have to go back to revisit the times where you have had tough times, where you have had trauma times. You have to go back and raise your conscious awareness around that. This is not something you can sweep under the carpet. I'm sorry, but it's time to do it. Okay, so 9 of discs is the gateway point. And again, that immediately to me resonates with where Mercury is. What mindsets do we have? What thoughts do we have? Let's not ignore them. Let's not just let them float by. Let's pay attention to them and see where they come from. Where do we get these thoughts from? Where did we inherit them from? Are they serving us? Are they creating anxiety for us? Because if they are, we need to look at where they come from and how we address that now. Debauch. So this again is a powerful card. What's resonating with debauch, because this is just really stagnant energy. Where have we got stagnant emotions? Where is our heart just feeling sick about whatever the story is? And I offer you that whatever the story is now is a storyline that has repeated since we were children. In our home, 4th house we went through with Cancer. 5th house we're in now. So again, the 5th house in Leo is mastery of the 4th house. It can also connect to when we were 4, when we were 5. You can literally look at that time. And major arcana is the Hierophant. So that to me, that's our angelic being on board that's going to guide us, just like we were talking about with the Scorpio energy, the moon. Scorpio energy is all about our intimacy wounding, and you cannot have intimacy and loving connection and deep relationship with people who lie. You just cannot, because you cannot trust them. And if you have continually been lied to, so let's say you grew up with parents who were alcoholics, and you would never know where you were with them if they were hiding that. You would never know what to expect every day. And if you haven't yet healed that, and I don't mean just talked about it, if you haven't yet emotionally healed it, and again, if you haven't checked out Emotional Freedom Technique, please do check it out. We are all stuck in a time travel past in some aspect of our lives because we haven't healed it. And there's nothing to be afraid of around that. It's how the whole universe works. We've got tools to work with it. Everybody can learn how to do this. Everybody can do tapping and start to release it. And also go deeper than just tapping in a daily way. Start to pinpoint these movies and times that are stuck in our lives because our fight or flight hasn't yet released them energetically, it hasn't really released them emotionally, and we're still stuck in that childhood framework where we're still doing the same behaviors that are making us ill in order to try and look for love in all the wrong places. So to go back to the wave spell. So each Mayan year is in a wave spell. And so because we're in a white 13-year cycle, every wave spell in this 13 years is going to belong to a white wave spell. Okay, so that in itself is profound. Now, if you know what your white wave spell corresponds to, so I've worked out all of my cycles, and the people that I work with, I work out their cycles for them. Then every time you are in a white, you are in your white. And you can work on a very deep level with uncovering your history. So you can be an Indiana Jones for yourself, okay? And you can start to mine that treasure that's in there and come into sovereignty. So the whole shadow process is about coming into sovereignty because we heal the shadow sides. We heal all aspects in the story around how we've been wounded, and then that turns to gold. And as that turns to gold, we become sovereign, we become confident, we become loving to ourselves, and we stop doing coping mechanism behaviors that create ill health and slavery to a system that does not respect the individual, which is the consumer system that we have lived in for thousands of years, the imbalance. Okay, so remember, with the North Node going into Aries, the South Node in Libra is where we need to be working in order to let our hero and heroine heed that call, go on that journey, find the golden fleece, find our true selves. We need to come into balance. You know, this is not something where we just set sail without being mindful of what we need to take on our journey with us. So again, to use another analogy, if you play Tomb Raider, for example, PlayStation game, you've got your backpack, you've got your healing stuff in there. There's the whole violent side of things, which I'm not into at all, but I know a lot of people are, and that sells the game. But if you look at the other side of it, the solving puzzles, like behind me, the Zolkin, this is about putting everything back into its place. So then your energy runs smoothly and think timeline opens, everything starts to slot in. And not only does it start to slot in for us personally, but for all our ancestors, because it all comes into total alignment. To use another analogy, the story of Isis and Osiris and Horus. Again, if you don't know anything about that, look that up. That's an asteroid in the chart. And that shows us where we've had a defrag. We've had a huge trauma where we've come out of our body. We've not been able to deal with it. We've parked it to one place energetically and emotionally, and it needs to be healed at the perfect time in order for our energy to run again. And now it's so powerful, it's time for us to really amp up this personal work, because as we change, everything in the system changes. We're all linked energetically, all our birth blood family today, and also everyone who's alive on the planet. So it's one thing to know this stuff intellectually. The most important thing is to do the healing. That is the most important thing, because if we don't, nothing will change for us in terms of, we may know lots of things about different healing frameworks or spiritual frameworks, but on the inside, we are not changing. So the outside gets more aggressive, the challenges get bigger, and in many cases, people are devolving because they're not addressing this. So it's so, so important. And all the support is out there for everybody. We can all do this if we just set that intention today to heal. That's why we came here. Okay, so where was I? I lost track now. Okay, so yes, the wave spell that we're in. So we're going to have white wave spells. If you know your white, so much the better, because you can work on a deeper level if you're ready to do that. And it is wow. I can't tell you how well it is. It will show you that we're never out of alignment with the universal program. For example, we're always on track. However, paradoxically, the more that we decide to focus on ourselves and doing this work, then our paradigm changes, because that's how it works. So we're never ever stuck. It's limitless if we're prepared to do this work. Blue hand, shape our destiny, do the healing within, and start to move. So we move from becoming a pawn on the chessboard to becoming a queen, and the queen has no limits. We can go anywhere we want. That's Leo. Okay, so Leo is so powerful, the energy, because it is about the heart. It is about having courage. It is about being a heart warrior. So we're here, down here, and we're in the yellow castle. So we've done the red, we've done the white, we've done the blue. We're seeing where we actually are in terms of what's manifest for us. And this began on the 3rd of February. So there's all dates for these as well, which I map. And so it corresponds. So again, it's like trying to do a translation so that you can work with both formats. The format that we've been programmed with, that we're used to, and the new program coming in, and how to manage the two together. So here we are. Yesterday was the day out of time, and as you can see, this is a black square. All these black squares are Akashic portals, and Akashic portal, a gap, a galactic activation portal, they're called as well. So for me, this is about seeing replays in your timeline, in your storyline, over and over again, and then working with them powerfully, using tapping, not getting drawn into the drama, doing it in a very disciplined way, so that you recognize that every problem, every issue that's coming in is actually the solution. And then learning how to work with that, learning how to understand, come into compassion. It's a gift. Everybody that comes in is a master teacher. If they are activating triggers, there's stuff to be working on for us. That's not excusing any abusive behavior at all, but it's recognizing if it's coming in, there's something there for us to learn about it and heal it and let it go, and go to the next stage of mastery. And this is why we do circles. It's why we do spirals. It's why we get repeating patterns. Okay, so 5, 4, Yesterday was the format, so going back to the number 4s that I got, creating heaven on earth, being self-existing, being free as a Skywalker of these old patterns. That's the ultimate goal, because then we are creating the new earth. And we're in the 52-day cycle, new earth. We're on the second 13 cycle, which is white dog. I hope I haven't lost you yet. Okay, so 4, 3, 2, 1, white dog. White dog, Sirius is the star, and twinned with red moon. And so again, Mercury, our higher self, our Hierophant, the realm shift. The more that we heal, the more that our ego changes. That is the optimum goal, to heal and mature our immature ego. That's what Venus is all about. That's what this calendar is all about. White dog is about the Sirius star on one level, which is the star that is very connected to a lot of spirituality in Egypt. Also, it's connected to the dog days at this time of year, when it becomes extremely hot and unbearable. And that's when the Nile begins to flood. And when the Nile begins to flood, it brings fertility to the whole valley. But it's a very, very challenging time before, during, and after, because of the chaos that it brings. So on the one hand, you could look at it as the extreme masculine with the heat and the sun, and then the extreme feminine coming in to redress the balance and create new life. And again, I did a little bit more research about Sirius. You can look up where Sirius is in your chart as well, which is very key. And there are 2 stars, Sirius A and Sirius B. And Sirius A is the bright, bright star, the illumination. Sirius B is the dead star and the collapsed star, where the gravity is so huge. Again, if you look at the metaphor of that for us, when people go through a lifetime of trauma, in whatever way or shape that is, and that is going to happen to virtually everybody on the planet right now, because of all the ancestry patterns that we're carrying from our ancestors before. All the world wars, all the terrible things that have happened on the planet have all affected human beings. And as much as we might want to think that we've moved on, we have not moved on the inside. We have not moved on energetically. We might have more stuff, or some people may have more stuff, more money, more material things. But going back to the 1950s, the more research that you do on that, you'll see how it's a big magical avoidance of the reality of where people actually are. And the more we start to understand about psychology and how people are affected by their childhood and what they've seen, what they've heard, how that stays in the body until it's released, that is just a core wisdom thing that people need to learn about in order to understand how each one of us operates and interacts. And unless that is addressed, there are not going to be any massive shifts, which is why we've been stuck on a cycle going over and over and over this. So white dog, Sirius star, white dog, cosmic dog is the center of the Zolkin. It's what needs to shift and how we shift that, so that we come into unconditional love, and we come there through compassion. And just on a basic level, I want to offer you a challenge over the next 40 days. Is I want you to think about your childhood and whoever your caretakers were, your mum and dad, your grandparents, your uncles, your adopted parents, your caretakers, your siblings, your friends, and really tune into that around how that's still showing up in your life when you were treated in a way that makes you feel angry or makes you feel sad, because that's what needs to be worked on. And look up how to do emotional freedom technique. There are so many resources out there. That's my challenge to you over this 40 days and 40 nights. I know we're a few days in there now. Start working on your inner dog and your triggers and healing them, because that's the best thing that you can possibly do for humanity. That is the most wonderful miracle for each one of us, to come into a place of unconditional love. And it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen with some positive affirmations or meditation. It takes work, and work is what we need to do, as you've seen in the card. Okay, so work, that's what needs to happen. Coming into a truce with our mindsets and our thoughts and saying, okay, I'm ready to listen to you and I'm going to do something about it, instead of focusing on those shiny, glittery things on the outside and everybody else and all this ego stuff around who I can be and all of that. And that, what's stuck, what's stagnant, what's bringing, what's, well, just look at that image, okay? And how do I create that? From that inner structure of feeling really good about who I am, and having my angel on board to come in more and more to guide me, because I'm not just getting my ego out of the way, I'm transforming it. So white dog, we've got 13 days and there's so much going on. So I'm just going to share. So this is the 13-day process that I create. I haven't been doing this for a long time for myself because I've had so much transition going on. So for each 13-day process, I create an ebook, and this is a huge part of my creativity that I really love. And then I create it with the planetary energy, the universal energy, the astrology and the Mayan calendar. And then I create it for an individual based off their code as well. So on Saturday, we had, when it began, that was July the 22nd. So that was a Mary Magdalene Day, actually, as well, feast day. I didn't put that on because I'd forgotten about that when I made it. But yeah, what was happening for you on Saturday, July the 22nd? What's in your holograph? Because, you know, what we see in our holograph, what's actually here for us in reality, that's what's going on. And it can be very irritating at times, you know, that I didn't want that to happen today. You know, I set an intention, and why is that showing up? It's showing up because that's where we need to pay attention. And we had Cancer at 29 degrees sun there. Chiron turned retrograde at 19 degrees on that day. So 29 is big news at the moment, because we've got the North Node at 29 degrees of Aries. We've got the South Node at 29 degrees of Libra. And we've got Pluto in Capricorn at 29 degrees. So again, if you want to know the little sigils, you can look them up. When things are in late degrees, this is a soul opportunity. Many, many lifetimes that we've spent doing, refining, going through this process, and we can bust through to the next level if we're paying attention and we've got time to do the work. I know for a lot of people, it's a very stressful time at the moment because we're getting squeezed. But even if you can only make 10 minutes a day, just make some time, because remember, the pattern that you're making today is what's creating your future. So don't be thinking you can work 24/7 and suddenly you're going to be in a different space. Start making more and more time and expanding that to get on track and do your soul journey. That's what's really important. You've got to trust that process, and more now than ever. We had Leo arriving on Sunday, July the 23rd. And again, I'm talking Eastern time here. Venus retrograde began at 28 degrees of Leo for 40 days. Okay, so there you go. I can't hold all this stuff now. I've got to write it down. So Mercury squares Uranus on that day. So again, just notice what kicked off your Venus retrograde for you, what you were doing. And then Monday we had yellow electric human, and that was the last day of cosmic moon. So we had 28 days of cosmic moon, which goes right back to this day last year, of what have you learned over the whole 13 moons, what's looking to shift for you, so you can really come into your personal alignment, which is what we all want for everyone, those people that are doing this work. Okay, we want this shift of empowerment because it's time. Then we had the day out of time yesterday. How am I creating heaven on earth through me, not dependent on something else, someone else? How am I able to be in my own space, free of codependency? And that takes a huge journey because of all these patterns. Today, we've got the magic flowing through us by Mastering White Dog. And then tomorrow, we have got a big day as well. So seeing our bigger picture tomorrow. Blue day, blue rhythmic eagle. Who am I as a planetary server? And one of the biggest days is on Friday because it's a clear sign, it's a gap day, it's a portal day, and it's yellow resonant warrior. So what is resonating? What's looking to be cleared? So again, number 7 here is that debauch. You know, how am I debauching myself? Why am I debauching myself? Why am I trying to numb out or hide from my emotions? Why am I still doing these old patterns? Red Galactic Earth is on Saturday, and that's integrating the previous wave spell. Sunday, July the 30th, we've got White Solar Mirror. And so again, we're going back to when we're in the center of the Zolkin. We're looking at, okay, what's in the holograph, what's shifted, what still needs to shift. Monday, blue planetary storm. Can we be in the eye of the storm? Yellow spectral sun on Tuesday, Lammas feast day, the 1st of August. So where we're looking at the harvest. And that's also the full moon in Aquarius at 9 degrees. And the crystal day, the number 12 step, is on Wednesday, August the 2nd. And that's the 10th 20-day code. So again, another 20-day process that we're in is we're here. And we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So running down here, we're in the gateway of Red Dragon. We're mastering again. So see how they cross over. We're mastering Red Overtone Dragon, our survival issues. So all the coping mechanisms we've had around needing to take a job, needing to be quiet. I mean, imagine, for example, I'm reading a book at the moment on the occupation in France. Imagine what it would have been like for anybody to be occupied anywhere in the world. So somebody comes in, takes over your village, and then your whole life changes and your life is at risk, and your children and everybody who lives in the village. There are no men there because they have all gone to war. And so you are there. I mean, this happened all over Europe. And so that energy is still within us. How do I survive this? Because literally survival was so hard, there was no food because that had been taken by the occupiers. There was no food there. And if you dared to say anything, to react, if you dared to speak of anything that they thought was disrespectful, I mean, this is where it all comes from. This is narcissism, this is gaslighting, this is extreme bullying, pathology. This is what we're living with now, still, that energy. This is still perpetuating, it's still happening. And so how do we master that? How do we overcome that so that we can be authentic? This is not an easy process. And this takes us down to yellow spectral sun, which is on the day of the full moon in Aquarius, yellow spectral sun. And then, so again, what are we releasing around our shadow story? What needs to die? How do we make this shift? Because remember, if we don't make this shift, we are continually projecting this story of disempowerment. And so the next one that we're going into is going to be number 10 here, which begins with red crystal dragon. And so the manifestation of how clear we are, and it goes to yellow overtone sun because it follows the loop of red dragon. And again, at the moment, I'm working with how this is the North Node. This process is the North Node. It's the 20 steps of the North Node, and how I'm not totally clear on how that works yet, but I'm working at the moment with individuals and working out their North Nodes. And so again, I'll come back to that in a moment. So what's seeking to shift for you? So we come to Thursday, August the 3rd, white cosmic wind, and that's a key Venus day. And again, so the more that you know about the astrology, so I put in the astrology, and again, what I do is I link people's articles as well, so that I have lots of different frameworks that I use and lots of different people's framework that I use, and I just share their information and with their accreditation as well as to their perspective on it, because everybody has their own perspective and their own focus, because each one of us is unique, and because we have a unique pattern and code, then we focus on different things, and that's so important to understand. So are we being solution focused? That's this whole spiral running from the Cancer new moon, which is all about making a shift from our childhood patterns and codes that no longer serve us or save us, and how we transcend. Aquarius is about becoming emotionally free, not doing the drama, not doing the projections, not doing the unfairness. It's what's fair for everybody in our society, for all of us. We're all in this together. None of this power tripping, none of this bullying, none of this imbalance, which is going to take time to address. Because unless people heal on the inside, they're going to keep projecting their stories and looking for people to play that dynamic with, because that's how it works. So we're moving towards this gateway where it's not that we become free of emotion. We have emotion, but we become free of the projection, and we are healing all the time. And so we become more compassionate because we're doing that process, and it's real. It's truth. It's not something that we just say. It's not a lip service. Okay, so So it's time for our personal freedom. And until each person achieves that, we're going through this process. So we just got to be patient. Now think back to this Venus retrograde, 40 days and 40 nights, and focus on 2015, what was happening for you then. I was in a very abusive relationship at that point that I needed to be in order to know the depth of that and where it was going to go, and so that I would have no doubt. And that was a repeating pattern again. It was very, very challenging, very hard and heartbreaking, and it really, really affected me. I was physically attacked as well. But what it really clarified for me, this person was supposedly a spiritual person who admitted that they'd been violent before, but they had redeemed themselves, they said. And on that promise, I carried on with the relationship, and they've just simply repeated all of that behavior. So that was at a time they came in at the very last minute, just before my 50th birthday. And this is where I'm coming from. You know, I'm not coming from some course that I've taken. I'm not coming from, you know, not that there's anything wrong with courses, but I'm not just coming from a place of intellectual awareness. You know, I'm doing a degree course, but at the same time, I'm working through pathology myself in the field. You know, so I'm learning the academia, and at the same time, I'm living it, and I'm working with people, and I'm understanding their perspective. And this has taken me a very long time. I've been doing this journey with psychology, for example, since 28 years, you know. So this is my second Saturn return. And because I have worked experientially, I have a different depth of understanding. And I'm not saying it's truth, you know, it's some of this is my personal experience, and I just share it. However, I feel that I've learned so much that if I want to work with other people, for example, doing a building project, which I'm looking to start soon with my husband, then I'm coming from a place of experience, that I want to have people who have experience. I love new ideas. I love to listen to people of any age, any background, any culture, any religion. I'm open to that. And I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm not just going to be the fool and just accept what people say. I want to know that they walk their talk. And this is so key now with this Mercury going into Virgo. This is huge, okay? To pay attention to the details, not to get stuck in them, but we need to pay attention and make sure that we are learning from what's happened to us in life so that we become wise. So 2015 was big for me. 2007 was equally big. And I was doing all my new learning then around energy therapies, aromatherapy, NLP, quantum touch, Reiki, healing modalities, which is perfect for what I was meant to be moving into at that time for myself, to learn that. And I can see, again, the more you start to map your cycles, the more you will see this yourself. So you think back personally, what was happening for you back then? And so also, this has not happened completely in Leo since the American independence back in, I think it was 1776, something like that. I think there's another date in the 1800s as well, which match these codes. So just think about what has changed. Has it really changed? It seems to have changed in some ways, but what's still under the surface? People are still angry. They're still holding this energy They haven't healed it, so it's going to keep playing out. And so the North Node being in Aries, the last time 2004 in December, what was happening for you then? That's a really key time. So becoming a detective on yourself. I wrote lots of articles in the past, and again, they really teach me things because I haven't embodied them all when I was writing them. Often that I was just channeling information. And again, I've put articles on there about Mercury going into Virgo and Chiron going retrograde. And again, this is a great article by Astro Butterfly. Really goes into the dates. So there's the detail for you. Check out her information if you haven't already, because she does great information sharing. And so the time to pay attention to is August the 13th. That's the middle of the retrograde cycle. Please check out her article for the deep in depth. I've just gone through this and tried to correspond it to the wave spell. And so at the moment, we're going down into the underworld. And so on the 27th, we've got Venus conjunct Mercury. And then on the 30th, we have got Venus quincunx Neptune. And again, these key degrees in Leo. Where is Leo in your chart? And what is going on for you where your heart is aching, where you're not getting your life experienced in the way that you want to, where you're not feeling loved, where you're not feeling passionate about your life, you're feeling sad. What's there that needs to be shifted? What's creating that? Because this is the work that we've got to do in order to get the shift. Again, there are lots of different stories, lots of different parables in different cultures about watching these stars doing this passage. So Venus becoming invisible, going down, Persephone in the underworld is one of them. There's lots of different stories and how she has to go through these different challenges. Or, for example, Hercules has to go through the 12 steps as well. Just look up 12 steps, for example, and look up mystery schools, Greek mystery schools, if you want to learn more about that. But remember, the most important focus is on yourself, your mystery school. So on the other big conjunction that we've got is Blue Overtone Hand Day, which will be on the next wave spell. So I'm not going to talk too much about that now because I'm going to do a video for that then. But Blue Overtone Hand is going to be a biggie. And that's on August the 9th. So yep, I think that's it for now as to the ebook. So yeah, long video, I know, and lots to speak about. So I hope you accept my challenge to really begin on your heart healing on a very practical level and work with the universe now so that we can all get this shift, because we are all in this together. And it's such a powerful time and everything is aligned. If you'd like to talk more to me about these codes, I'm not taking any more bookings at the moment, but in the future, I will be coming back to work. It may be a while because I really have to focus on my own journey right now. And so lots of love to you and your journey and where you're up to. And I hope that you have an amazing time of discovery and creativity and magic. Lots of love.